Hello and welcome to News Central TV. My name is Mazino Appeal. Here are the stories making headlines beyond the continent. We begin the news in the U.S., where U.S. President Joe Biden has issued an official pardon for his son, Hunter Biden, who was facing sentencing for 2 criminal cases despite previously ruling it out. In a statement, the president said his son had been singled out and called his cases a miscarriage of justice. Hunter Biden pleaded guilty to tax charges earlier in September and was found guilty of being an illegal drug user in possession of a gun in June, becoming the first child of a sitting president to be convicted of a crime. For News Central International correspondent Afia Hagen has more on this.
You leave no one behind.
President Joe Biden announced that he has pardoned his son Hunter Biden, who faced sentencing this month for federal tax and gun convictions, marking a reversal as he prepares to leave office. "Today I signed a pardon for my son Hunter," the president said in a statement. It's a full and unconditional pardon, according to a copy of the executive grant of clemency. This official grant of clemency cannot be rescinded by President-elect Donald Trump. By pardoning his son, Joe Biden has reneged on a public promise that he made repeatedly before and after dropping out of the 2024 presidential race. The president and his top White House spokesperson said unequivocally, including after Trump won the 2024 election, that he would not pardon Hunter Biden or commute his sentence. This pardon now means that Hunter Biden won't be sentenced for his crimes, and it eliminates any chance that he'll be sent to prison, which was a possibility. The judges overseeing his cases will likely cancel the sentencing hearings, which were slated for December 12th in the gun case and December 16th in the tax case. In a social media post, President-elect Trump called the pardon such an abuse and miscarriage of justice. In an apparent joke, Trump also asked whether the pardon includes his supporters who attacked the U.S. Capitol during the January 6, 2021 insurrection, whom he has promised to pardon once he's back in office. Joe Biden justified the pardon by pointing out that few people are charged with the addiction-related gun offences without aggravating factors, such as using the weapon as part of a violent crime. He also argued that many people who pay back all of their late taxes, like Hunter did, are allowed to resolve their problems through civil enforcement instead of facing criminal charges. The president further claimed Hunter Biden was singled out for prosecution only because he is my son, allegations that were previously raised by Hunter Biden's lawyers and resoundingly rejected by 2 federal judges. This is the latest instance of an outgoing president using the pardon power to help a family member. Shortly before they both left office, Bill Clinton pardoned his brother, and Donald Trump pardoned the father of his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagen.
Now to discuss more on this, we are joined by World Affairs commentator Laurie Laird. Hello, Laurie. Pleased to meet you again. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Good evening. Lovely to see you.
Yes. So, Laurie, how does this pardon impact public perception of the U.S. justice system, especially in high-profile cases involving political figures?
It's such an excellent question. And look, this pardon system, as Afia Hagen's report, very good report, pointed out, this is something that presidents have done since the beginning of the presidential history. She made a couple of mentions of presidents who have pardoned people, very controversial. Bill Clinton, who she mentioned, also pardoned a financier called Mark Rich, who was a commodities trader. Turned out that his wife had been a big donor to the Clinton campaign. So a lot of these pardons are suspect. But coming at this time, when the Justice Department, when the justice system is it feels compromised by people on either side of the political divide, it doesn't do any good. Look, the past 2 presidencies, you've really hit on a very good question here, have eroded faith in the judicial system. Republicans believe that Donald Trump was prosecuted unfairly, and many of his prosecutions were politically oriented. Democrats, on the other hand, feel that the Supreme Court has been overly biased in a number of its cases. So America is divided in so many ways, but this lack of trust in the judicial system is very, very serious.
Now, Laurie, Biden wouldn't be the only president to have pardoned members of his family. You actually talked about one or two of them, but there are more. Trump as well also pardoned his son-in-law, if I'm not mistaken, and that wouldn't be the first time. What other legal precedents has been set before this pardon?
I'm glad that you mentioned future and former President Donald Trump pardoning Charles Kushner. That is the father of Jared Kushner, married to one of his daughters, who was a very pivotal person in Trump's first administration. And as it's going to turn out, Charles Kushner has been nominated to be the U.S. ambassador to France, which is unbelievable. He served jail time. We're not sure whether he speaks French. So we do have this history of some of these questionable pardons. I think one of the things here that will really dog Joe Biden is that he had said he would not pardon Hunter Biden under any circumstances. And so I think Democrats and Republicans alike are very disappointed in this. And I'm surprised at the level of Democratic disappointment with this decision.
So does that disappointment also extend to the administration's credibility or its transparency?
I think that this, I wonder if Joe Biden thought, my legacy is so tarnished at this point, I may as well go ahead and do this very unpopular thing. But you ask a very good question about transparency within the inner core of the Democratic Party. And I think many Democrats are thinking now, what happened before that disastrous debate with Donald Trump on the 27th of June? Who knew that Joe Biden was not able to speak very clearly, and why was that kept from voters in general? So questions about transparency in the Democratic Party are very good ones to ask.
So now the public holders who perhaps maybe have the same legal challenges, do they now have a basis to perhaps maybe seek for pardons as well after this?
It's difficult to see what comes next for Joe Biden. His press secretary had a very, very difficult press conference today at the White House, fielding all sorts of questions. And remember, the media is usually, in the U.S., is usually fairly accommodating to Democrats and has been fairly accommodating to Joe Biden, but she was taking some very difficult and very reasonable questions. But one thing she did say is that Joe Biden is looking thoroughly, that was her language, at the pardoning process. And of course, most presidents do issue the bulk of their pardons in the dying days of their presidency. And we still have quite a bit of time to run until January 20th, when Joe Biden will step down from office. So the indication was that he will be looking at other pardons, but nothing will be as controversial as this pardon that he has given to his son.
So what potential challenges might arise, from the pardon in terms of political polarization and also legal debates?
This is an interesting question, because we have seen, and you and I have gone through in this very short time, a number of these pardons in recent presidential history that look suspect to people on the outside. And I think the question is, has this constitutional right to pardon people, the president has this right, is this subject to misuse? Is it extended to criminals who may have been donors to that party or to the president in charge? And I think it's probably time for this to be looked at. Now, the ability to pardon is written in the Constitution. That makes it fiendishly difficult to ever remove that from the Constitution. But Congress does have the ability to put limits on some of the pardons that some of the pool of former felons that could receive a pardon, and perhaps Congress may start to look at this.
Well, Laurie, I want to say thank you once again for joining us this evening. And regarding
always a pleasure.
Well, Kushner might still have a couple of months which he could learn French.
yeah, we need to keep an eye.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now let's head to the Middle East, where we understand that ambulances and vehicles transporting the injured have arrived at Al-Ali Hospital in northern Gaza after an Israeli airstrike in the Jabalia area. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has described the situation in Gaza as appalling and apocalyptic, warning that it could lead to the gravest international crimes. Speaking at a Cairo conference, Guterres called for international action to support sustainable peace and humanitarian efforts in Gaza. The ongoing conflict, which began on October 7, 2023, has resulted in 44,429 deaths, according to local health authorities. Guterres condemned severe aid restrictions, noting that only 65 trucks have entered Gaza daily, compared to 500 per war, and criticized Israel for impeding relief efforts amid Gaza's collapsing health system and rising famine risks.
في منطقة مسجد العمر جبال البلد تم انتشال إصابتين خطيرات من تحت الركام وما زال إصابة وشهيد تحت الركام. سنتوجه الآن للمكان كي نقدر بس إطلاق النار مباشر من سكوات كابتر على المكان بشكل.
Lebanon's parliament speaker Nabil Berri has accused Israel of violating a ceasefire after Israeli strikes on Monday killed one person and wounded another on the sixth day of the truce. Berri, who helped mediate the ceasefire on behalf of Hezbollah, called the strikes a flagrant violation of agreement. In response, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar denied the accusation, stating that Israel was enforcing the ceasefire in relation to violations by Hezbollah. Saar added that Israel had acted in accordance with the truce terms, contrary to claims of its breach. The situation remains tense as both sides exchange accusations over the fragile ceasefire.
That Israel is violating the ceasefire understandings in Lebanon. On the contrary, Israel is enforcing them in response to Hezbollah's violations, which demand immediate action. For example, when armed Hezbollah terrorists are identified in southern Lebanon or when they attempt to move weapons. Their presence south of the Litani River is the most basic violation of the understandings. Hezbollah terrorists must not be present south of the Litani. Israel is committed to the successful implementation of the ceasefire, but we will not accept a return to the situation as it stood on October 6, 2023. If violations occur, Israel will enforce.
Still in the Middle East, pro-Turkish fighters have seized a strategic northern town from Kurdish forces, happening parallel to a major rebel offensive in the Aleppo province. This is according to Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. According to the Monitor, the fighters took control of Tal Rifat and several other nearby villages, adding that about 200,000 Syrian Kurds in North Aleppo province have been besieged by pro-Turkey factions. Communications in Kurdish-majority areas have been cut off, triggering concerns of possible massacres of Kurds. On Sunday, the observatory reported that pro-Turkey factions had killed government forces and attacked Kurdish fighters in Aleppo province in an offensive that began the previous day. The operation aimed to sever Kurdish supply lines. Tal Rifat, located about 20 kilometers south of Turkish border, has been a frequent flashpoint for clashes between Turkish-backed forces and Kurdish fighters, whom Turkey regards as terrorists.
كانت منغصة علينا الرفعة تحرير سوريا كلها كانت منغصة علينا الرفعة الحمد لله رجعت الرفعة لأهلنا لزوارنا للأبطال الأحرار.
Meanwhile, Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan has rejected claims of foreign interference in the recent jihadist offensive in northern Syria. Speaking alongside Iranian counterpart Abbas Araghchi in Ankara, Fidan stated that the flare-up, which led to Damascus losing territory in the northwest, stemmed from the Syrian regime's failure to engage with legitimate opposition groups. He emphasized that ignoring opposition demand has exacerbated the crisis, urging Damascus to reconcile with its people and the opposition. Fidan reiterated Turkey's stance against escalating the civil war and confirmed that Ankara has communicated with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, expressing support for efforts to reduce tension in Syria. Turkey, a supporter of Syrian rebel factions, continues advocating for dialogue to address the conflict.
Gelişmeler Şam'ın kendi halkıyla ve meşru muhalefetle uzlaşı sağlaması gerektiğini bir kez daha gösteriyor. Türkiye bu yönde gereken tüm katkıyı sağlamaya hazırdır. Astana süreci kapsamında önemli çalışmalar yürüttüğümüz İran'la koordinasyonumuzu önümüzdeki dönemde de sürdüreceğiz. Biz Suriye'nin toprak bütünlüğünün ve birliğinin korunmasını her zaman destekledik. Bundan sonra da destekleyeceğiz. Türkiye, istikrarsızlık ortamından istifade etmeye çalışan terör örgütlerine asla ve asla geçit vermeyecektir. Ulusal güvenliğimize ve halkımıza yönelen her türlü tehdidi bulunduğu yerde...
And now a break. Let's go on that one. But when we get back, we will tell you that ICJ debates planet's future. Vanuatu leads call to action. We'll have the details after the break. You're welcome back. We now head to Asia, where we understand that China has called on the United States to stop meddling with Taiwan after a 20-minute call between former U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Taiwan President Lai Ching-te. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Ling Jian urged the U.S. to recognize the pro-independence stance of Lai and Taiwan's Democratic Progressive Party, the DPP, warning that Taiwan independence activities threaten peace in the Taiwan Straits. He reiterated China's demand for adherence to the One China principle and the Three China-U.S. joint communiques. Lin emphasized that the U.S. should cease interfering in China's internal affairs and stop supporting Taiwan's separatist forces.
我们敦促美方认清赖清德和民进党当局的台独本性，认清台独分裂行径对台海和平稳定的严重危害，恪守一个中国原则和中美3个联合公报，停止插手台湾事务、干涉中国内政，停止支持纵容台独分裂势力。
Now we jet set to Europe, where we tell you that the United Nations highest court has begun unprecedented hearings to establish legal guidelines on how countries should protect the planet from climate change and assist vulnerable nations in addressing its devastating effects. George Nawaf Salam, who presided over the hearing, opened the session. The session will feature presentations from over 100 countries and organizations before the International Court of Justice in The Hague, marking the largest such gathering in the court's history. In Oceania, hearings at the UN's top court have opened with Vanuatu urging action to secure the planet's future, marking a historic case to define countries' legal obligations on climate change. Over 100 nations and organizations are presenting at the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, the largest participation in its history. Vanuatu's climate representatives Ralph Regenvanu called the case the most consequential in human history, saying its outcome will shape generations. Activists hope the ICJ's opinion will drive legal and legislative action, though concerns persist about its non-binding nature and lengthy timeline. Demonstrators outside the Peace Palace urged climate finance and also justice. The hearing follows COP29 in Azerbaijan, where wealthy nations pledged $300 billion annually to 2023, or rather by 2035, for clean energy transitions, a move developing nations criticized as insufficient amidst worsening climate impacts.
It is with a profound sense of urgency and responsibility that I stand before you today representing the Republic of Vanuatu and the Melanesian Spearhead Group in these historic proceedings. The outcome of these proceedings will reverberate across generations, determining the fate of nations like mine and the future of our
Now, Romanians have expressed disappointment following parliamentary elections that have resulted in a fragmented parliament, deepening the country's political deadlock.
Aș fi vrut să iasă altcumva lucrurile, ca tânăr și ca om. Nu-mi place cine a ieșit, dar dacă oamenii asta au dorit, asta am primit. Nu știu dacă o să fie neapărat cazul de depărtare din Uniunea Europeană, dar dacă există riscul cu următorul candidat la prezidențială, nu e neapărat o problemă mare, aș zice, deocamdată.
Da, am votat. Păi, în climatul în care suntem acum, nu cred că ne permitem să nu votăm, mai ales ca tineri și mai ales având în vedere valul ăsta de extremism care ne-a luat, să zicem că a ieșit la iveală peste noapte, dar parcă era ceva, având în vedere cum e România din ultimii 35 de ani și mai ales nemulțumirea oamenilor adunată din pandemie încoace, e natural că s-a ajuns în punctul ăsta. Rezultatele ce a ieșit? Nu le văd chiar bine, adică nu le văd bine deloc și nu știu dacă văd bine nici viitorul, dar contează să rămânem împreună până la urmă.
And that's all on Beyond the Continent this evening. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.